British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Richard Montgomery, has revealed that the number of Nigerian students in the United Kingdom's universities rose from 20,000 to 127,000 just in 3 years. Montgomery also disclosed that Nigerians alone received 325,000 visas out of 3 million issued for international students and other immigrants in 2022. The ambassador made this known while defending the UK government's new policy on the restriction of foreign student visas. He says the policy was a mechanism devised at managing the pressure on social services for scholars. Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, Deputy Dean, School of Postgraduate, Base University, joins us now in the studio to discuss this. Professor Adeniyi, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, 20,000 in 3 years, 20,000 to 127,000 students leaving Nigeria for the United Kingdom. Some would say that's brain drain, a huge brain drain. Others would say it's an investment. We're sending our students abroad to learn and then come back to build our nation, to develop Nigeria for us. What position would you hold on this?
Okay, thanks, Sulu. But first, let me just commiserate with the friends and families of Professor Lai Osho.
Okay, Professor Lai Osho, okay.
Who died last night, you know, an erudite scholar, you know, a huge communication library, like somebody said. And of course, very unfortunate, you know, we just want to wish that God Almighty will grant his soul a peaceful rest. Now, having said that, you know, well, it's important to just put these things in context, you know. There's a reason why somebody there's a reason that will actually help a parent. There are reasons why parents and wards take decisions on which institution to attend and where, you know. First and foremost, they think about life after school. Which institution or which environment do you think will enhance your opportunity to land a good job, you know, at the end of the day? And of course, this decision can be very fluid. Sometimes people think that foreign institutions may do the trick because of the supposed quality in those places. And sometimes as well, you think that local institution. And the second other factor that will determine it is the level of your economics, as the case could be, you know, how solid are your finances, you know. It comes into play as well, you know. Before, in the 80s and in the 70s, when people travel abroad, they are eager to come back and help in the development of the country, but not anymore from the 90s when the economy started nosediving considerably and people began finding it difficult to find jobs at home, you know. Parents began to think that if they externalize the educational hope of their wards by raising funds and sending them abroad, it is possible that a better future will be guaranteed, you know, whether they stay abroad or whether they come back home, you know. It will give them an edge over those who are educated in the local environment, without necessarily meaning that, you know, the quality of education here, you know, is lower. And again, do not forget that employers of labor, both in the private and the public sector, often privilege foreign certificates, rightly or wrongly, above local certificates, again, without saying that, without necessarily implicating the fact that quality of education here is low or standard is low. But let's again remember that the Chinese, you know, at the time, statistics showed that over 100,000 Chinese students were registered in the US institutions on an annual basis. And of course, over 50,000 Chinese students were registered in UK institutes on an annual basis. But when these ones go, they return to China, you know, to help in the development of that country, which of course has led directly or indirectly to the rise of the Chinese economy. But in our own case, when they go, you know, it will have what will have been an added adventure, you know, because traveling itself is education. Absolutely. You know, what will have been another opportunity for them to return home and help in the development of the country. They rather want to stay back and somewhat stressing, using all kinds of tactics, which you cannot necessarily blame them for, to stay behind, you know, because they probably do not see hope returning to Nigeria. Okay. So these statistics, you know, is realistic. You know, of course, the UK authorities are right to some extent with their decision. You cannot blame them. You know, but what we need to do if we want to reduce it is also to strengthen our own environment.
Okay, we'll come come to that,
yeah.
Professor Adeniyi.
Okay.
Now, they're saying the UK government is now saying that they're clamping down on the number of dependents allowed to come with foreign students, not just Nigerian students to the UK, but foreign students generally. And then when Nigeria tried to raise an eyebrow against that, they said, well, it's not targeted at us. Is this a systematic way of checkmating Nigerian students going abroad to study?
Well, you see, the nations have ways of regulating the immigration, and you cannot necessarily blame them because these are countries that are mindful of statistics and the level of resources that is available. You know, they do not want to stress their institutions, their health institutions, their educational institutions, because if you go, you know, because of education, you are exposed to health facilities. You know, all of that facilities are also available for you. So they calculate these things, and they probably don't want stress. That's why they are concerned about this kind of regulation.
So how is this regulation going to affect the Nigeria-UK relations, otherwise cordial relations?
I don't think it should affect it ordinarily, because what it means is that strengthen your own local institutions, increase the level of belief in your own institution, your own educational institution. And like I said, you know, the quality of education in Nigeria is not necessarily bad, you know, because most times it's not even where you are educated that really matters, you know, but how you allow yourself to pass through these schools and the meaning you are able to make out of these institutions. That's what determines, you know, your productivity at the end of the day, because we have seen people who were educated in this country from point A to Z, and they have excelled. They are in areas where they found themselves. There are so many examples to give. So it's about the individual developing yourself, and not necessarily a question of where you study. Or sometimes, I'm not saying that it doesn't have advantage. Remember, I said that traveling can also be educational. But, you know, I'm thinking that until you travel abroad before your education can be regarded as qualitative, is not necessarily is out of place.
Okay, then. Now, you've also brought in something else, personal development, which I would tell you is a major leverage to the four walls of the university. Anyway, you've mentioned the fact that it's important for us to make our education inviting enough, our educational system in Nigeria inviting enough such that our people can stay back to study here on the one side, and also to make our economy attractive enough and prosperous enough for the students, our students, to go and study and then be willing to return. Let's touch on the difference between the quality of education here and the standard, because both have to be worked on if indeed we want to encourage our children to study back home. Let's touch on the quality, which is worse, which needs to be worked on the more. Is it the quality or the standard? Okay,
look, when we're talking about quality, there's not, if you look properly, there's nothing wrong with the quality of our education, the quality of human resources. What matters is the environment, you know, the infrastructure and utility available, you know, for students and teachers to enhance their abilities. That's what matters. Is it properly provided? Of course, there are questions to be asked around all of that. You know, if government can have more money into public institutions, of course they will do better than they are doing. And of course we are having private institutions now that are growing and are doing excellently well. You know, sometimes it may just, these travels may be as a result of psychological desire, you know, because you may think that you will be better educated if you travel abroad, whereas there are institutions in Nigeria that can match some of these foreign institutions, I dare say. But people just feel that, you know, until I go out before my education can be qualitative, you know. So there are so many things to it. It's more of the time, most of the time, is about choice, you know. If you look around very critically, there are, you know, high standards institutions where they insist, you know, on quality. They are very careful with the recruitment of staff, lecturers, professors, etc., etc., and they are very concerned about, you know, what they impact to students, such that if you do not meet some kind of level, some level in terms of learning and character, you are never allowed to graduate. So if we look critically, we will see that, you know, some of our institutions are actually better than some of these foreign institutions, without necessarily saying that, you know, there are also no quality in institutions out there. You know, sometimes again, like I said, it can be a question of the mind, you know. Until I travel out, you know, until I get foreign education, I wouldn't have spiced off my my certificates. I need some foreign qualification, and oftentimes we fall prey to some fake institutions abroad. Online institutions that are less qualitative than the ones we have here. But for the UK, coming up with this policy, you can't necessarily blame them. Remember what I said about when people travel abroad. Of course, they give student-dependent visas, which means that they can travel with their wives and children and further strain. And if you take, I'm not sure they're not telling us the statistics. More than half of those who go never want to return, even if the principal person who is the student, himself or herself, wants to return. The relation often want to stay back, and of course they start negotiating belonging, negotiating integration that strains the institutions. These countries are very sensitive. They calculate these things, in the interest of their own people, as the case could be.
Okay, so then, as far as you're concerned, it's a mind over matter. Thank you very much, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, from the Dean of Postgraduate Studies, Deputy Dean of Postgraduate Studies, Bayes University.
Thank you.
We must thank you for always being there. Thank you very much for coming on Newsnight. We appreciate your insight.